The first type of family schema that we'll dive into is the consensual type, and our book really does a nice job of explaining this type of family as kind of the best type, so to speak, or the type that we all strive to be. This family is high in conversation and high in conformity, and there's lots of talk, lots of communication, but there's also authority in place. The parent usually makes the decisions, and the children listen to those decisions with respect. This type of family values open communication and clear parental authority. The parents here are really traditional in their marital orientation. They have conventional views of marriage and place a lot of value on stability and certainty in their role relations, more so than on a variety and spontaneity. The traditional wife here takes her husband's last name, has strong feelings about infidelity, shares much time and space with her husband, works out a time schedule, and really spends as much time together as possible. Same with the husband. They may be in charge of some decisions for their family, but they also know that the wife should be in charge of decisions as well. This type of marriage, there are no separate rooms for their own activities. For example, there's no man cave or the she shed type of a thing. There are just, the family gets along as one unit and everyone kind of sticks together. So what do the experts say? Well, research proves that there's not much conflict in a traditional marriage like this because power and decision making are distributed according to these customary norms. So let's talk a little bit about the pros and cons of the consensual type of family schema. The pros, again, the book really does a nice job of showing this as the ultimate family communication model. There's little need to negotiate and resolve conflict in these marriages. The couple can be assertive with each other and with their children when necessary, and everyone respects that authority and gets along. In my opinion, some of the cons are there's little need for change or growth. Each person tends to support the other's requests without much appeal or argument. Sometimes argumentation can be a good thing. And, again, the relationship doesn't have a lot of refuting or arguing going on, which can be good and bad in my opinion. So there are definitely pros and cons to this type of family schema. Now it's time to look at a few of our first artifacts. I know the assignment required one artifact, but I decided to change it up a little bit and do a couple of smaller artifacts. So what you'll see throughout the rest of the presentation are different artifacts that go along with each type of family schema. So the consensual type, I'll have a couple of artifacts here for you to look at. If you don't have time to look at all of these, that's okay. As long as you watch probably at least one of the TV show clips and then read the poem or listen to the poem, you'll be good to go. So I have different examples from This Is Us, which is one of my favorite TV shows and has some great parenting advice along the way. So we've got a scene about Tess coming out and Rebecca at the dinner table. I found a good scene from Roseanne where she's talking some sense into her daughter, Darlene. And then I would like everyone to look at Dana Goyoya's poem about love called Marriage of Many Years. So after you've read listened to these artifacts, please go to our discussion board for question 3. And keep in mind questions 3 through 6, you're choosing one or more to answer. So after watching the 3 TV show clips and listening to the poem, what makes these examples of a consensual type of family? Can you think of other examples from your own life or other TV shows or movies that weren't mentioned here? So take a moment to look at these artifacts and then please respond to question 3 if you choose to do so in our discussion board. Moving into the pluralistic type of family, this type of family is really high in conversation but low in conformity. So there's a difference there between the last type that we talked about. There's a lot of unrestrained conversation, but everyone will decide for themselves what actions to take on the basis of that talk. These families are very independent, but also unconventional in their views of marriage. So we'll talk a little bit about the pros and cons with this one. Everyone here is deciding their own actions. Parents don't feel the need to control their children. And marriage is also really independent and, like I mentioned, unconventional. Some of the pros, Again, the opinions are evaluated on the basis of merit, and everyone participates in a family decision making process. These types of parents raise very independent thinking children, and parents value their autonomy, they're expressive, they respond to each other's nonverbal cues, and usually understand each other very well. Some of the cons of the pluralistic type of family would be husbands and wives don't really lean on each other as much as in the previous example. Parents often have separate rooms for their activities. So I mentioned before the man cave or the she shed or the garage or the den. There are a lot of separate rooms for their separate hobbies, and they may have separate interests or even friends outside of the family. Personally, I don't see that as a bad thing. I think everyone needs their space, everyone needs their friends, their time, but the book made it sound like that was maybe a little bit of a negative tone. These marriages, though, are constantly negotiated. There is much conflict in this type of marriage. It's very independent, and partners often vie for power, use a variety of persuasive techniques, and are not reluctant to refute each other's arguments. So there were a lot more cons mentioned in the book with the pluralistic type. So I want you to take a moment and think about maybe your type of family, if you are married, your type of marriage, and so far, which one does it fall into, if any. We still have 2 more to go after this.